Hi, I'm Jody Wheeler. I am a student at St. Martin's University in Lacey, Washington, and this video is for my philosophy class in ethics. My instructor is Matthew Albright, who encourages us to think. My video is on the social contract theory. And though Plato and Socrates were the original theorists who wrote essays about social contract theory, I'm going to focus more on the modern theorists such as Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau. I don't want you to think I've ignored the contemporary writings, like in the 1900s, of Rawls or Gauthier. I'm familiar. I'm just going to focus on the old guys. The Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy states that the social contract theory is the view that persons' moral and or political obligations are dependent upon a contract or agreement among them to form a society in which they live. Forming a moral and political society has been a necessity for humans to continue to survive as people versus living in nature. Hobbes argues that living in the state of nature would be unbearably brutal and in a state of utter distress, and that every person's in fear of the next guy killing him. So I think it's a bit caveman stuff. Locke, on the other hand, describes the state of nature as natural condition of mankind as a state of perfect and complete liberty to conduct one's life as it best sees fit, free from interference of others. Again, with that, I think that's hippie stuff. Somewhere in between this is where I really believe it, nature to be true. So I think Hobbes is a bit extreme in his ability for his fear of human survival, and I also don't believe that there is a perfect on this earth either. So I'm going to tell you about forming a new society and compare it to an egoist state of thought. And once again, in the writings that I've done, I always talk about Minnesota. So we're going back to Minnesota, and we're going back to Minnesota in the winter. Minnesota winters can be brutal. It's nature. Raw, cold, frozen. No crops can be grown. There's ice that's 10 feet thick that covers the good fishing spots. And so men began to drill a hole in the ice to fish to provide for their families. But it was still very cold, and you cannot survive very long out in the elements. Some thinking man, we'll call him Oli, decided to take the playhouse he had made for his daughter and put it on the ice, and then from an opening from the floor, dig a hole open in the ice and fish from his daughter's playhouse, protected from the wind and cold. It is my opinion that this indeed was the first man cave. Well, another fisherman, Sven, was still sitting outside fishing with frozen fingers, watching Oli inside the fish house. He did not have kids, so he did not have to have he didn't have a playhouse to cover his fishing hole. So he decided he would build a hut and design it for ice fishing. Now, so he made a door with a hinge that covered his fish hole, and that also kept the hole from completely refreezing, saving a lot of time. And he put in an oil heater. Well, Sven and Oli, they got along just fine, even if Oli was a little jealous of Sven's oil stove. Sven fished in his ice house, and Oli fished in his. And well, word caught on, and soon enough fish houses were popping up all over the popular fishing spots. Now it was understood that when you fished the lake, especially the popular spots that where fish were known to run, it was first boat obviously got to pick the best spot, and subsequent boats that would have to be nearby or elsewhere. If you didn't like your spot, you reeled it up and went elsewhere. With the ice house, it usually stayed in the same spot for the entire season. No other fisherman could demand that you move your ice house so he could put his in your place. And that was the beginning of a social contract. Because of the popularity of the ice houses, besides providing for their families, guys got away from the house and had some me time. Other rules were brought into play. Don't make a lot of noise or it will scare the fish away. No one will catch fish. And so no unnecessary truck or snowmobile traffic. Don't steal fish outside of your neighbor's ice house. It's their catch. Show respect to your fellow ice fishermen, even if they scream like a girl as an eel pout flops around on their arm, still attached to the line. Yeah, that's another fish story. If you see your neighbor's house smoking more than the stovepipe should, make sure they're okay. By following these few simple rules, social contract, the egoist fisherman is able to survive and provide for their families while still being able to focus on their own well-being by fishing without being interrupted by someone else's needs, having some me time. So that's my interpretation of the social contract theory. I hope you enjoyed it, and it's pretty rough, but that's mine. Thank you.